is the NT Country Hour on ABC Radio Darwin and the Northern Territory.
G'day there, my name is Matt Brand. Welcome to the program. The federal government is reviewing the trucking industry's rules around filling out logbooks to manage fatigue. Today you'll be hearing from truckies who feel a change is needed.
There would not be a single person in the trucking industry in this state or anywhere else who thinks the existing and long-standing logbook or work diary rules make any sense or that they're of any value in managing fatigue.
NT WorkSafe has today issued a safety alert about the risk of working outdoors when there's lightning around. I'll be telling you more about that in a moment. And before 1:30, we'll get to meet the newest skipper in the northern prawn fishery.
I was given the opportunity to take over the Comac Endeavour this season, and I just fell in love with it more. Hunting for the prawns, finding them, and looking out for my crew.
Yeah, that's young gun skipper Cale Gordon. You'll get to hear his story on the Country Hour today. Let's get into it. We are broadcasting right across the territory on the ABC, and g'day there if you are tuning in via the podcast. Let's start today in Queensland, because in amongst the lines of cattle for sale at Roma today is over 500 head of stock from Tipperary Station in the Territory. These cattle have travelled around 3,000 kilometres to be at the sale today. I spoke a little bit earlier on to Tipperary manager David Connolly, who's there at the sale.
Matt, I'm down at Roma Sales today, which is Australia's largest store cattle selling centre, and we've sent 504 cattle down from Tipperary to Roma Sale to sell today, and they've just completed selling, as a matter of fact.
And how did they go?
Red hot, Matt. There's a saying in the job that says you never have a bad sale when you're standing in mud, and it's raining like hell here this afternoon, and it's been a very good sale. Buyers here thinking that cattle won't be invented again by the look of it.
Are you able to give us a rough price per kilo?
Well, we haven't got our averages yet, but the top of our run at sort of 400 kilos have made 645 cents per kilo. So you can do the maths on that. They're just starting to run them through and do the scales on them now.
Wow. So it's a long way from Tipperary to Roma. Why do it?
It's a long way, all right. We found it's just been hard to get rid of these heavier weight cattle. Whilst the market's good in the Territory, market's very solid, it's been hard to get rid of these 400 kilo sort of cattle in the Territory because Vietnam, it's been a bit hard to get cattle into Vietnam, and they're a bit too heavy for Indonesia. So we wanted to sell these cattle. We've mustered them and done all the work on them, so we wanted to sell them. So we've taken the opportunity to sell them, bring them down here to where it's raining, bring it down to where the market's been very strong, bring them down to where cattle are short, and supply and demand has taken care of the rest.
Is it all male cattle that you've sold today?
Yeah, all steers, 504 steers.
Yeah.
It's over 3,000 kilometres, Matt. We spelled the cattle on the way down. They did 2 days, 48 hours at Cloncurry, where we rehydrated the cattle and fed them well and looked after them. Just spelled them, and then put them back on the truck and brought them down to Roma. And they got here on Saturday, just gone, and they've been on good feed here out in the backyards on water and looked after. And then just yarded up early this morning and sold now.
Have you got a sense on if this exercise was worth it?
Yes. The cattle are yet to weigh and determine the final price, but on the cents per kilo price, it looks like it's been well worth it. It's exceeded our expectations.
Great. And have you got a sense on who swooped on these type of cattle?
Yeah, local fatteners, local bullock fatteners have bought these cattle. So, and a few feedlots. We had Whyalla feedlot and a couple of Morton Co. Those sort of big feedlotters, big operators. They bought a few of the pens, and then the rest were bought by local bullock fatteners who put them on this magnificent buffel country here in Roma that they call Champagne country. And it's raining, Matt. It's really raining. This country looks fantastic, and we're standing in the rain.
So do you treat yourself to a night out in Roma before you head back to the Territory?
No, mate, I'm too mungery for that. I'm now gonna drive back to Brisbane. I'm gonna jump on the plane at 8 o'clock in the morning and go home.
Well, thank you for being our correspondent today from Roma. It sounds unreal. Well done on the sale.
Good on you, mate. My pleasure.
That's David Connolly from Tipperary Station, right in amongst the action today at Roma. How about that, hey? Tipperary cattle, over 500 of them, trucked all the way to Roma and selling hot. What did David just tell us? Best ones fetching $6.45 a kilo. If you get the calculator out and just put in 400 kilo as a pretty rough estimate, that's each beast selling for $2,580. Thank you very much.
G'day, I'm Steve Beattie from Road Trains of Australia. Yeah, I've been working for RTA as a truck driver and in management since 1987. Yeah, and when I'm out on the road in the truck or in my car, I tune into the Country Hour.
There was a yarding of around 2,900 head today at Roma. So Tipperary cattle made up a fair old percentage. The full report will be on the Country Hour at the back end of the program, care of the National Livestock Reporting Service. So that's coming up. Now on the topic of trucking, the federal government is reviewing the trucking industry's rules around filling out logbooks to manage fatigue. Since 2014, truckies have been required to log their hours via an updated National Worker Diary. But there are many who feel the system does nothing to help and needs a change. Hugo Rickard Bell takes a look.
So it's 1989 Kenworth C500.
The National Worker Diary was introduced in 2014 to protect drivers from employer abuse and overworking, which in some extreme cases led to substance abuse. But a lot of drivers feel this threat is no longer relevant.
My name's Brad Bloomfield from Alice Springs. I've got a small haulage company, specialise in interstate freight and subcontracting work. Been driving trucks for about 5 years. Modern trucking companies have got so much to lose now that, and it's so easy for a driver to sort of blow the whistle on a company that does the wrong thing, that a lot of companies wouldn't really risk that. And I think, professional drivers, when you need to have a rest, and when you feel good, keep driving. And so for the vast majority of people, we just get out and do our job without needing to resort to anything like that.
The Northern Territory and Western Australia do not enforce the same laws surrounding logbooks, making their borders a welcome sight for drivers like Brad Bloomfield.
As a professional driver, you learn how to manage your fatigue. It's part of the job, I reckon. Someone tells you where you have to be, and it's up to you as a driver to manage your own fatigue on the way. If you get tired, stop and have a sleep. You can do that in the Territory. Whereas interstate, running logbooks, it's like as soon as you start your day in logbook, you have a set time to do all your work, and then that sort of, you don't really have that freedom because you're on a timer to get as much done as you possibly can within that time period. And if you don't, then you miss out on those hours.
Drivers are not the only industry members who oppose the laws. Steve Shearer is the Executive Officer of the SA Road Transport Association. He says there are better technologies available now to manage fatigue.
There would not be a single person in the trucking industry in this state or anywhere else who thinks the existing and long-standing logbook or work diary rules make any sense or that they're of any value in managing fatigue. They don't manage fatigue. They manage counting rules for work and rest, and that's a very poor default mechanism for managing fatigue. There's much better ways of doing that now.
Can you give us some examples of better methods of managing fatigue that the industry is having a look at?
Well, years ago I said to some people, the problem we've got is we don't have a breathalyzer for fatigue like we do for alcohol. Nowadays, we do have the equivalent of a breathalyzer for fatigue. There are systems such as one that's called Guardian. It's a camera system that sits on the dash inside the driver's cab. It's focused on the driver's face, on the eye, and it's observing the driver's eye movements, basically. So if I close my eyes it might be a very quick blink. That's fine, but if my eyes stay shut for too long, and it's only a matter of a second and a bit, then the system picks up that my eyes are closed for too long. Maybe my head drops, maybe my jaw flops open and it's clear I'm having a micro sleep. If the system picks that up, it immediately causes my seat to vibrate to wake me up before I head off into the bush with the truck. It also, though, the video footage is assessed by the experts in America who operate the system, and if they confirm that it seems to be either a distraction event or a fatigue event, they send an email with that little bit of video to the employer, and the employer can then look at that and contact the driver and discuss what's going on, and if need be, instruct them to pull over and rest or whatever is appropriate.
After plenty of noise from the transport industry, the National Worker Diary laws are currently under review at a federal level. Andreas Blahaus is the Principal Advisor and Safety Assurance for Fatigue and Human Factors at the National Heavy Vehicle Registry. He says that since logbooks have come in, there has been a big reduction in fatigue-related accidents.
The Heavy Vehicle National Law is based on a body of knowledge around how humans perform. And it sets what are fairly rigorously understood limits, maximum work limits, minimum rest limits for humans based on human dynamics as a whole. So it's well known, well understood that a human requires 7 hours of sleep in order, if they are fit, in order to bring their performance back to a safe level after having a long day. But work diaries are an essential part of the fatigue safety law across Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, etc. Since these laws were actually first implemented more than 2 decades ago, this is when we first went to the logbook, we've actually seen industry data that shows that the rate of crashes caused by driver fatigue has reduced by half.
That's Andreas Blahaus of the National Heavy Vehicle Registry. So the federal government is reviewing this and received feedback from industry in May this year, but a firm date on when the government will make a final decision or any decision is not yet known. It is 18 to 1 and you are tuned into the Country Hour. We are the Territory's leading source of rural news. And in a moment, I'm going to be telling you about the federal government's plan to merge the seasonal worker program and the Pacific Labour Scheme. So that's coming up on your radio in a moment. But first, let's have a tune. And just a moment ago, we were hearing about the Tipperary cattle that have been trucked all the way to the Roma sale yards. Well, one of the truckies involved in that mission is a bloke called Bouter. He's one of the most famous truckies on the social media platform Twitter. And this morning he tweeted a video of himself driving back towards the Northern Territory and thoroughly enjoying this song by Waylon Jennings and Hank Williams Jr. So let's give it a spin on the Country Hour.
Hank, let's talk about your daddy.
It's called The Conversation. That's for Bouter and all the truckies out there on the highways this afternoon getting it done.
Yo, country. Hello, my name is Otto Campion, Pulmanier. They call me from Bushname. I'm a Arifia swamp ranger. I'm working with many countrymen. And you're listening to the Country Hour.
Matt Brown with you this afternoon. Now, the federal government's announced plans to merge the seasonal worker program and the Pacific Labour Scheme. So starting in April next year, the two will become one. It will be called the Pacific Australia Labour Mobility Scheme, aka PALM. Everyone's calling it PALM. Andrew Colbeck, he runs the employment agency The Job Shop. Andrew, can you explain to us what this new scheme is all about?
So the PALM scheme is replacing the seasonal worker program and the Pacific Labour Scheme. The seasonal worker program would allow us to bring workers in normally for 9 months, and then they'd go home. And the Pacific Labour Scheme is a longer term scheme that would allow workers in for up to 3 years. The Pacific Labour Scheme was managed by a different organisation than the seasonal worker program. And so there's been a decision made to combine the two programs and have it managed by the one government department.
Which is DFAT, yes?
Correct. So in the past, Department of Employment, Skills and Education used to, still manages the seasonal worker program, but that will be all taken over by DFAT.
Turning two programs into one, what's your take on it? Good idea?
I think it's a great idea. We've been involved in the consultation period, which has been underway for some time now. I mean, the details in the fact sheet are very promising. There's a lot of talk about streamlining and simplifying, which is music to my ears, and I'm sure for the industry, anything that can make things a little bit more straightforward in this business is very welcomed. There's also some outstanding new flexibilities with regards to visas and the duration. They're talking about up to 4 years. Other key points that I like are the fact that someone can come in on a short-term arrangement, and then you can apply to extend that to a longer-term arrangement, so without the worker having to go home. So things like that are certainly going to help industry and employers to identify talent and be able to retain them for longer term.
For farmers listening to this who in the past have relied upon overseas workers, is there much they need to do or get their head around before this all kicks off in April?
No, I don't think so. In terms of people that are already involved, are aware of the intricacies of the programs, the simplification of it. I think we just need to wait and see the detail, exactly how that's going to work. But it's business as usual until April, and I think between now and then there'll be a lot of work going on behind the scenes to make the transition a reality. I mean, they're talking about a new website that's used to administer the program, so we don't know whether that's going to involve using something that we've already been using and are familiar with, or whether it's a completely new program. We'll have to wait and see. We don't want to see the reinvention of the wheel, Matt. Mm. We're very comfortable with the processes, I guess, at the moment in terms of the online portal and things like that. But anything that can be done to introduce efficiencies will be welcome for sure.
And just before I let you go, Andrew Colbeck, last time we spoke to you on the Country Hour was about the rise of seasonal workers fleeing their place of work and getting lured out of their contracts. Has there been much change in that space over the last month or so? Because it's certainly been in the media a lot.
It has, Matt. It was a very good article that featured on Landline on the weekend recently that reinforced the story that you ran a couple of weeks ago. Very similar themes, and yet the answer is nothing's happened to change that that we've seen. There's talk that there will be changes and more enforcement. Interestingly, in this the PALM program, there's reference made to Fair Work, and but there's no talk of any kind of commitment to dealing with this issue in that new scheme. So hopefully there will be some action being taken very soon. We've just lost another worker in New South Wales absconding, so we're still suffering from the issue, and we really want to see it cleaned up.
Okay, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Matt.
Andrew Colbeck, he is the Managing Director of The Job Shop. It's 7-1 here on the Country Hour. Now, NT WorkSafe has today issued a safety alert about the risk of lightning strikes to those who are working outdoors in the top end. It comes after a Timorese seasonal worker was killed and 2 other injured after being struck by lightning while working on a mango farm in Darwin's rural area last week. NT WorkSafe's Maria Regas told Dan Fitzgerald about this safety alert.
So our latest safety alert is basically discussing the risk of lightning strikes to outdoor workers. We had an incident last week where lightning struck a mango tree nearby where workers were working, and 3 workers were injured. So the safety alert talks about practical measures that businesses can have in place to protect their workers from the risk of lightning strikes.
What sort of measures should businesses with employees working outside be doing to ensure the safety of their workers during the wet season?
Yep, so they can monitor weather forecasts and conditions to make sure that workers are not working at a time where a thunderstorm is occurring or is about to occur. They can establish a method of warning supervisors if a thunderstorm is approaching or when a thunderstorm is approaching. They can have a set of actions predetermined with workers in case they see lightning. So if they do see a lightning strike nearby, they need to have a process in place so that workers can seek shelter and not sort of be exposed to lightning strikes. They can make sure that workers are trained and they are clear and know where adequate shelter is for them to go to.
Is there any advice about how far a storm is from a location and what's a safe distance from a storm that employers can use?
So I'm not 100% sure. I think it's 25 kilometres away that should a lightning strike distance be within 25 kilometres, then you need, the advice is to seek shelter.
Lightning strikes, they're pretty much a part of life for people living in the top end, and especially during the wet season. Is it possible to reduce that risk of lightning altogether?
You just have to monitor the weather and make sure that if the risk is there, that you have adequate protection for your workers. So it's just a matter of working out what you're doing, where you're doing it, and having those control measures in place.
So this safety alert, it comes after a lightning strike in Berry Springs, which we said unfortunately led to the death of a 34-year-old Timorese man. What can you tell us about NT WorkSafe's investigation into that incident?
I can tell you that inquiries have commenced, an investigation has commenced, and we're not able to comment at this point in time.
That's Maria Regas from NT WorkSafe speaking there to Dan Fitzgerald about this safety alert that's been issued today. Now, just before we go to the ABC newsroom, let's just get a quick update on the COVID situation here in the Northern Territory. Good news, there's been no new cases reported overnight, which is wonderful to hear. The Health Minister, Natasha Files, provided an update just a short time ago, which included some encouraging news for Katherine.
We have negative wastewater results right across Katherine, which is very pleasing, including Bicentennial Road, which, as we know, for many Katherine residents, we've been closely watching Bicentennial Road. It had that positivity, and then it went to a presumptive positivity, and now we are pleased to say that it is negative for November 26 and 27. So all really great signs in Katherine. So a big shout out to everyone down there. I know it's really warm and hot, but they certainly are doing the right thing. So the lockout will remain in place for Katherine until December 7th, but everything is certainly pointing in that right direction. We had 137 vaccinations delivered in Katherine yesterday, which is really pleasing. And the Katherine rate is climbing. It's not quite at 80% double dosed, but it isn't far off. And so we'll certainly report to the community when we achieve that 80% double dose vaccination rate. In Largemanu, so our other area of concern, where we had the positive wastewater on the weekend, it has turned to a presumptive positive. So that indicates that the COVID presence has decreased. And as the Chief Health Officer and I spoke to yesterday, it could have been someone passing through, it could be someone shedding the virus. So the wastewater is presumptive positive. We have no new cases or no cases in Lajamanu, so we can't fully explain that, but we'll certainly be ensuring that we follow through with the wastewater testing and also keeping up the rates of COVID-19 testing.
That's the NT Health Minister Natasha Fyles speaking a short time ago. You can watch the Minister's press conference in its entirety if you head along to the ABC Darwin Facebook page.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? My name is Gilam Banu, aka Bolabaro. Narayako Rilikpir Banu.
Yo, my name is Davis Wirpanda and I'm from Baniala. I work at Gulkula. My Yolngu name is Wadon. I'm a Yolngu man.
And you're listening to Country Hour.
Matt Brown with you this afternoon. In a moment, you'll be hearing about Charles Darwin Uni's plan to appoint a pretty high up sort of person to be based out of Nhulunbuy in northeast Arnhem Land. So CDU's been on the expand, building up the office in Katherine, getting people into Alice Springs, now getting people into Nhulunbuy. CDU, keeping it rural. Tell you more about that in a moment. We'll head over east where, unfortunately, a lot of cotton is starting to go underwater. But first, let's go to the Weather Bureau. Ange Prasad is there this afternoon. How are you, Ange?
I'm good, thanks, Matt. How are you?
I am very well. We've got a question here from Dave in Palmerston who wants to know, are we still on track for our rainfall? And is the monsoon going to get here before Christmas, Ange Prasad?
So rainfall has been a bit hit and miss with this wet season. As you know, La Nina was declared on the 23rd of November by the Bureau of Meteorology, and looking at the rainfall so far, we've seen a lot of rainfall south of the top end. So, for example, Alice Springs has smashed its November record. The top end, unfortunately, has missed out in some places, and Darwin is one of those places. So currently, wet season to date, we've got 148 millimetres in our rain gauge, and that's 70% of the long-term average. So if we look at the average, we should have received about 213 millimetres of rainfall. Now, the rainfall outlook has changed for the Northern Territory. We are now looking at a weak La Nina pattern, and so the rainfall outlook is still above average for the eastern parts of Australia. For the Northern Territory, it's actually gone back to more average rainfall pattern expected for the summer months. So that's December, January, February. So for the next 3 months, we can expect an average rainfall outlook.
Okay, what about Dave's, the core of his question, Ange Prasad? Will the monsoon get here before Christmas? We are speaking to your colleague Greg Browning on the program tomorrow. Should we leave it for him?
Greg Browning is the expert to listen to when it comes to monsoon onset. So I'll probably defer to. That's his,
okay. We've got him. We've got him lined up for tomorrow, the 1st of December. So Dave in Palmerston, we'll put that question to Greg Browning tomorrow. Now, Ange, all of a sudden the radars are a bit quiet, and it's just hot, isn't it?
Yes, so a lot of dry air arrived into the top end with the last southeasterly surge that arrived this weekend. So we had a really good day, a very wet day across Darwin, the northwest top end on Saturday, but it did dried out in most places by the end of the weekend. Now, this dry air is putting a damper on showers and thunderstorms. So the first half of the week, showers and thunderstorms will be very isolated and coastal. And because of the sunny conditions across much of the NT, and also a deepening trough near the South Australian border, we are looking at a lot of heat building up. So as a result of this heat building up, we are looking at a third heat wave for the season. So low to severe intensity heat wave is going to grip much of the Northern Territory for much of this week. Mm-hmm. The heat wave, unfortunately, is not likely to break down until the weekend.
Okay. How hot could it get in some spots?
Inland areas of the Northern Territory, including Central Australia, we're looking at temperatures in the low to mid 40s. Coastal areas, so places like Darwin, Nhulunbuy, will escape much of the heat. Generally, it will be in the mid to high 30s.
Okay. Anything else we need to be aware of this afternoon?
Just the heat wave will be all pervasive the first half of the week. We do see showers and thunderstorms gradually return from Thursday onwards, sort of become a bit more widespread and start to spread inland. Katherine is not likely to see any relief until probably Friday or Saturday at this stage. Stay on top of any forecasts that we issue. It's going to be a very hot week. We're also likely to see severe thunderstorms in the second half of the week, especially over northwest and western top end.
Okay. All right then. Thanks so much for your time, Ange.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ange Broussard there at the Weather Bureau. There'll be updates from the Bureau throughout the afternoon here on the ABC. Really important to keep up to date on the severe heat wave that is affecting so much of the Northern Territory. G'day to everyone in Borroloola tuning in this afternoon. Borroloola expecting a top today of 40 degrees.
Heat waves kill more Australians than bushfires, cyclones and floods combined. People most at risk are outdoor workers, babies and the elderly. Check that they're able to stay cool. It's also very important to cool the body at night using water, fans and air conditioning. Health effects can sometimes occur days after the heatwave passes, so if you don't feel well, seek medical help. ABC Radio, your emergency broadcaster.
It is 1:11 on the Country Hour. Just before we learn a bit more about CDU's plans for Nhulunbuy, let's quickly head over to Queensland, which is copying a lot of rain at the moment and causing concern for a lot of the state's cotton growers. Now, cotton enjoys a good drink of water, but does not thrive when it is swamped in water for too long. For Alicia Redding, who farms in the Gundawindi region, a major flood as well as 50 millimetres of rain this morning means their irrigated cotton is now devastatingly underwater.
Our paddocks down the back that are along the river have been flooded, like I said, for a couple of weeks now. But now it's not only the floodwater that's the problem, which it is coming across the front of the farm now. We've had over 50 mil of rain this morning and it's still raining quite heavily now. So it's actually runoff on the farm that's causing some drama as well.
And it's all not able to go very far at all because, as you say, the river's swollen. So what crops are potentially not enjoying so much water?
We have about 1,500 hectares of cotton inside our levee in our irrigation paddocks at the moment. I think because there's nowhere for the water to go, our tailwater system's backed up. They're probably all underwater now as we speak. So we're probably looking at losing our first cotton crop that we've had in 4 years.
Oh, that's hard. That's very hard to hear. I'm sorry about that. Did you get all your winter grain off?
We did. We were lucky. But that being said, we had lost of our crop to flooding over winter. So, yeah, we've had a tough few years recently. But, you know, we're farmers. We keep going. Water is hope, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
what we're trying to tell ourselves at the moment anyway.
You've gone from drought to now a moisture problem.
Yes, absolutely. It's hard to go and buy myself a pair of gumboots.
And would or could you consider, if this rain stops, the floodwaters pass, replanting some of that cotton, or is the opportunity for the planting window closing?
Oh, look, the planting window goes up to the end of December, but we want to plant any later than the first week or two of December. So it probably, with like how wet it is, we probably would miss that opportunity. So, yeah, not much we can do about it.
Alicia Redding, who farms in the Gundawindi region, her cotton underwater, like so many of her neighbours. Just awful. Imagine growing a good crop and then you lose it like that, and the cotton price is unbelievable. It's been on the rise and rise this year, sitting at around 120 US cents a pound. There's Aussie growers locking in bales for about $710 a bale at the moment, which is huge. You've got to go back to about 2011 to find a price like that. So the cotton is worth a lot of money. They just need to keep it out of the floodwater at the moment. It is 1:14 here on the Country Hour.
I'm Bluey. I'm out at Middle Point Farm. I'm an organic grower. We are growing tomatoes, carrots, melons, pumpkins, corn, and you are listening to the Country Hour.
And on the program this year, we have heard about Charles Darwin Uni's plans to expand its presence in the regions, with new Associate Vice-Chancellors in Katherine and in Alice Springs. Well, now CDU has announced a similar role will be appointed for the East Arnhem region based in Nhulunbuy. Deputy Vice-Chancellor for First Nations Leadership, Reuben Bolt, he says this is a really positive step for the uni and admits that closing the CDU Learning Centre in Nhulunbuy in 2019 was a mistake.
I came on board in 2020, and so that was all new to me. I think what it does, though, it gives the sense of CDU pulling out of the regions. I don't think we should do that or should have done that. I know the VC has been very keen to say that, that was a mistake. I agree. And I think CDU has a lot to offer for the regions. It really is about how we make those connections and those deep engagements with the relevant stakeholders, whether that's industry or government or Aboriginal community, NGOs, etc. I mean, we need to do that deep engagement for us to be effective.
And so you're appointing this new Vice-Chancellor role. What exactly will they be tasked with?
So they're actually quite unique. They're very niche, I think. So we're looking for someone that will have the leadership experience, but also someone that can deliver some of the training. So if I look at the industries in the Nhulunbuy region or the East Arnhem region, obviously mining is there now with Rio Tinto, but there's also construction. The care sector is quite prominent there, and then we're also looking at the aerospace industry. And I recall that Chief Minister Gunner said in a recent media release that as a result of the aerospace industry, there will be, it's a $30 billion industry by 2030, 20,000 jobs, probably most will be overseas, but there's a real opportunity for CDU to be, the trainer for those. So we can make a significant contribution to the workforce in the Northern Territory.
So you see that as a potential opportunity for the region. But what specific role would you like CDU to play in building those industries or in servicing them?
Yeah, it's about having that connection first. If we don't have that connection, then I think it will be very difficult. We do have connections via some of our lecturers, etc. So some of our lecturers do reverse blocks. They'll go out to various communities, really all across the NT. They'll do their training that needs to be done, and then they'll fly back. So it's kind of a fly-in, fly-out, which doesn't necessarily work well. What we need is a presence and a presence that will be there that's ongoing. And I think the Associate Vice-Chancellor roles, I think those are ideal for us to be able to build those, because we need someone that can engage with our key stakeholders. So those, communities that we're going to deliver the training to, we're going to be able to have the discussions with the relevant industries, at the level of strategy, at the level of delivery. So it's kind of multi-tiered, I think, and we need somebody that has all of those skills. So again, I think it's a niche kind of position.
That is Reuben Bolt from Charles Darwin University speaking there to Max Rowley, CDU, expanding its presence in the regions of the Northern Territory and setting up a base there in Nhulunbuy. Right across the Territory on the ABC, you are tuned into the Country Hour. The Gulf of Carpentaria has for decades been a happy hunting ground for prawn fishers. But like many agricultural industries, finding willing workers and keeping them has become a real challenge for this sector. Well, Cale Gordon has set his sights on a career in the northern prawn fishery and has just wrapped up his first season as a skipper. He spoke to Charlie McKillop on the Cairns Wharf as the last boxes of the season were getting unloaded.
Oh, it's an absolutely beautiful sound. It's the sound of home, knowing that we've returned from sea, a long season, lots of trials and tribulation for the boys, everyone on board. Yeah, it's wonderful to be home.
You mentioned trials and tribulations, no more so than a young skipper taking on the challenge of his first drive of a boat. Tell us a little bit about where you've come from and what that was like to find yourself at the wheel for the first time of the Comac Endeavour.
Yeah, so I've been with the company for about 4 years now. I've always loved coming back. Can't help but be out here. When I'm at home, I just find myself staring out at the sea and thinking about being on the boat, and found myself loving it more and more as I learnt more and got better at my job. And then I was given the opportunity to take over the Comac Endeavour this season, and I just fell in love with it more. Hunting for the prawns, finding them, and looking out for my crew.
How did that pressure feel and that adjustment to knowing that instead of just being one of the crew, you're now in charge of and responsible for their safety, well-being, and of course the performance of the boat?
Well, the first couple of days were pretty stressful, I'm not going to lie to you. You know, I was feeling under the pump, but as the days went on, I felt more comfortable and just set in really easily into the role. Yeah, just got more comfortable as the days went on and found that I was doing better and everyone was working smoothly.
So, Cale, tell us a little bit about your office.
My office is the best office I reckon you could get in the world. Looking out on those mornings and watching the sunrise over a nice calm ocean, or even the sunsets as you experience both, there's nothing like it. It's just tranquility, being able to look out and see the wide blue, know that she's in control of your vessel and you've got to abide by her. There's nothing more I'd rather see when I wake up.
But then it's time for winch up. Tell us about a day in the life of a prawn fisher.
Well, the routine for me is to wake up in the afternoon, have a coffee straight away, get up and ready, then go and wake the boys up to shoot away. We drop the nets in, and then we shoot away to whatever depth we're at. We trawl around for however long we need to, depending on the size of the bags, the tri-gear, that tells us what's going on. We'll winch up 3 to 4 times a night. Spill on deck, the boys will process, everyone will be up processing, working together. Usually really loud music playing, keeping the spirits high. Then the boxes get put in the freezer, in the snap. Then in the morning, we do our final shot, the boat gets cleaned, and if we've got a good score, then we'll stay there, anchor up, everyone get a good snooze. If not, then we'll be moving on to the next spot to hunt down those prawns.
Carl, you obviously went into the gig with your eyes wide open, but what has been the biggest surprise package? What's the biggest learning out of season 2021 for you?
Well, it's just been that the season has been rather slow. A slow season for a lot of people out there. We just had to try and find the most and make the best out of it, which we managed to do. But that's probably been the hardest part of the season, was just keeping everyone going when there wasn't much happening. But we found our spots and moved on and kept moving and kept finding those prawns.
So we won't find any prawn fishermen in the bars of Cairns tonight bragging about killing the pig, is that right?
They'll probably still give it a go.
But it's not going to stop you from going home and having a good Christmas. And then what about season 2022? Have you got your sights set on that? And what's next for Cale Gordon?
2022, I'll be back here for bananas. Weather so far looked like it might pan out to be good, and we'll just see where we go. Hopefully stay on that wheel, get a skipper's position and have my own boat. After trying it for a short period of time, there's nothing I want more. Yeah, absolutely love it.
That is Cale Gordon reflecting on the tiger prawn season, which has wrapped up for the year, and it was his first season as skipper of the Comac Endeavour, one of 10 boats that are owned and operated by Austral Fisheries. He was speaking there to Charlie McKillop. It is time now in the Country Hour to head to the sale yards. Let's go to Roma, where Tipperary cattle were up for sale today.
Good afternoon. A rain-affected yarding saw numbers fall to 2,900 at the Roma store sale today, down by 1,945. Cattle were mostly drawn from the usual supplier, including quality local lines and a run from the Northern Territory. The overall quality was varied, with steers accounting for 2/3 of the total numbers. Despite the rain, a competitive buying panel was present and operating, including all regular processors. Steers were still selling at the time of this interim report. The market continued to strengthen further off the back of widespread rainfall and reduced numbers offered, with price fluctuations reflective of quality variations. Lightweight steers improved by 15 to 72, while heavyweight steers improved by 23. Lightweight steers under 200 kilos sold to an interim top of 855.2, while lightweight steers under 280 kilos reached an interim top of 778.2. Medium-weight steers under 330 kilos reached an interim top of 772.2, while medium-weight steers under 400 kilos sold to an interim top of 702.2. Heavyweight steers reached an interim top of 608.2. This has been Cheryl Stavona for the National Livestock Reporting Service.
Thank you for that, Cheryl. A good day to sell cattle at Roma. Earlier on in the Country Hour, we spoke to David Connolly from Tipperary Station in the Northern Territory. He was at Roma today to watch 500 head of his cattle being sold, and he sounded pretty chuffed.
There's a saying in the job that says you never have a bad sale when you're standing in mud, and it's raining like hell here this afternoon, and it's been a very good sale. Buyers here thinking that cattle won't be invented again by the look of it. The cattle are yet to weigh and determine the final price, but on the cents per kilo price, it looks like it's been well worth it. It's exceeded our expectations.
Yeah, that was David Connolly speaking to us earlier on. Some of his steers today at Roma fetching $6.45 a kilo. Thank you very much. Hey, just quickly to some news in the live export industry. Australia's largest exporter of sheep has had its export licence reinstated after a 3-year suspension. Emmanuel Export's licence was cancelled in 2018 after an investigation into the deaths of 2,400 sheep on a ship that was bound for the Middle East. In a statement, the Department of Ag in Australia said the company had now sufficiently rehabilitated itself so as to resume its status as a body corporate of integrity. The company will be able to resume live exports as of December 3. You can read more about this up online right now. Go searching for ABC Rural. Hope you've enjoyed today's Country Hour. Let's do it again tomorrow. We will be joined by a long-range weather forecaster to tell us more about the wet season and what to expect. So I hope you can join us for that. Keep it rural.